For girls, what was your reaction for seeing a penis for the first time? For guys, what was your reaction for seeing a vagina for the first time? My girlfriend was incredibly surprised at the fact that I can move it without touching it, just like any other muscle. I shortly lost my boner after she kept flicking it around and stretching it for a good half hour. Edit. Man, my top comment is now about stretching my schlong. I was 18 when I first realized guys could actually move it. My cousin's friend started moving his and I thought it was just his hand underneath his pants, but then I realized his arms were folded across his chest. I was like, WTF? That's like having an extra little arm. When I watched a porn movie I found in my dad's closet, first time I saw a vagina, I thought it looked like weird flaps of skin, and I wondered why the hell it gave me a raging boner. I called it instinct. I'd read online that to give a blowjob, you should pull back the skin on the head of the penis to reveal the sensitive part. I specifically remember pulling on the tip of my circumcised boyfriend's penis, wondering why it wasn't peeling back for a good minute before he had to stop me because he was in too much pain. I cried, for days. I wanted nothing to do with a vagina for a while after that, only boobs. Took me a good 14 years before I was even interested again. I was 0 years old when it happened. My first sexual encounter is wrapped up with the first girl I dated and fell in love with. We were high school friends who started dating near the end of our senior year. The anticipation of being with this girl had brewed for years. When we did finally take all our clothes off, I felt a mixture of surreal, this is really happening, with, so that's what it feels, smells, looks like, and I'm aching to be with you. So it is an inextricable part of the totality of that moment. I wish I had lived in it a little more. First time I saw a penis in person, I was like, huh, that's bigger than expected and looks way simpler than a vagina. It was a pretty average sized penis, but I thought porn dicks were even more exaggerated than they are. I was more disappointed in myself for not being able to basically deep throat it right off the bat. And although the guy complimented me on keeping my teeth out of the way, it took some practice and research to figure out what kind of touching feels best. Also, I kept having to hold back nervous giggles over having an actual dick in my actual mouth. I never thought a negative thing about it, but I'm sure laughing wouldn't have gone over well, regardless of any explanation. The first time I saw a vagina in person was way more mind-blowing. I was all, holy shit, I have one of these and I had no idea. I didn't know the first thing about where my own clitoris was, but they're like mini cocks, they're tough to miss. I also had basically never stuck anything in my own vagina before, barring the penis mentioned above, and found that it was not located as high up as I thought it would be, and it felt all sorts of interesting and bumpy inside. And I very quickly learned that I needed to keep my fingernails short if I intended to go on touching vaginas. I was older, more experienced, and less nervous during vagina time than penis time, but I was still basically naive and clueless about how bodies vary and how pleasure works. I spent a lot of time just exploring and figuring things out before anything actually got sexy, which was ultimately well worth the time for both of us. The first time I saw a woman's pussy in real life, I kissed it. She seemed to like that, so I kissed her pussy again. I kissed my pussy and she hissed at me, so that's where the scar on your cheek came from. When I was 10 or 11, my friend, girl, also 10 to 11, were bored, so she suggested we play a game. I don't know how or why, but the game culminated with her rubbing her partially pubescent pussy on my bathroom floor. Afterwards, I high-fived myself. Having a vagina all my life, I assumed that penises were in the exact same spot, i.e. between the legs, rather than a few inches below the belly button where a girl's pubic bone would normally be. Obviously, I hadn't considered the logistics of how sex works, but it was a crazy moment of discovery that everything I thought I knew about penises was wrong. Also, I still think they look funny. Internal dialogue. Okay, there it is. It's exactly what it should look like, I think. Actually, it's kinda gross. I don't really want to touch it, but I should offer to touch it. To not touch it would be rude. I'll just prod it gently. Why is he looking at me like I'm crazy? What? Did he say grab it and squeeze? WTF. I thought this was the most sensitive part of a dude's body. Won't that hurt him? I hope he doesn't try to grab and squeeze any parts of me like this. Okay, ow. He suspects my anatomy is resilient to equal pressure. Ow. How do I tell him to stop without being rude? Ow! I guess I'll just wait for it to be over and next time I'll tell, oh wait, that was it? My boyfriend was a virgin and a little shy about sex, and he told me he never saw a vagina or touched one before, so I let him touch mine. He basically was fascinated the whole time, saying he can feel it pulse, and was worried when I told him to stick fingers in me. He tried playing with the clitoris, but couldn't really work it as I normally do. We were getting there though. Afterward, he just kept looking at his hand while we watched a movie and smiling like an idiot. It was adorable. Well, I'm a circumcised guy living in the UK where most people aren't circumcised. Mostly girls don't say anything. Some girls make a comment, but I've had a couple who were just outright fascinated and never saw anything like it before. I'd also get a bit of, it's so much harder to jerk you off like this. Your dick is weird. Edit. First vagina I ever saw was my mom's. I don't remember reacting that much. But the first time I saw my dad's penis, I was like, WTF? Why is it so huge? In my mind, of course. Both occasions were on accident. I never used to knock as a child, lol. My mom told me that when I was a toddler, I walked in on my dad using the bathroom and they had to explain different parts to me. Later, I proceeded to loudly yell, penis, over and over at the dinner table. My parents told my grandma I was saying peanuts, so I guess it was intriguing, lol. I wanted to touch it so much. I mean, I did see pics before, but seeing the one-eyed snake staring at me for the first time was something else. I did everything I wanted to do that day. I was shocked that the shaft of the penis had no hair on it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I was thrilled about this particular surprise, but surprised nonetheless. Imagine oral sex on a hairy shaft. Gross. Edit. I'm not talking about a half inch of hair creeping up from the base. I'm talking full-on pubic bush all the way up to the tip. I would draw it for you, but I don't want to give myself nightmares. I was 7 years old sitting under a tree in the rain with a couple of neighbor kids, and we had umbrellas around us to shield out the rain. I told this 5-year-old boy to show us his penis. He did. I giggled. That's pretty much the whole story. I accidentally saw my great-grandfather's for my real first time. He was old and couldn't feel the air against his junk, I suppose. I got used to it. The first time I ever saw one that I could do something with, I was amazed by it. The feel and the reactions and everything. I felt the power. How would that fit in my mouth? My first girlfriend told me her favorite thing was to have me in her mouth when I was soft and feel it grow. Seeing my first vagina was like meeting a celebrity or a famous person. I'd seen them on computer screens and in a couple of generous R-rated movies, but up close and personal, it was like being starstruck. I thought it looked strange, then wondered what I was supposed to do with it. I knew about the existence of handjobs and blowjobs, but I had no idea how to give one. And being a virgin, I wasn't quite ready for sex. And it felt nothing like I had expected. I expected it to be softer, I guess. Real talk, first time me and my girlfriend did it, I had no idea she had 2 different holes down there. Guys don't have 2 different dick holes, as useful as that would be. I just assumed my entire life that it was one slit for peeing and sexy stuff. She laughed her ass off at me when I mentioned it. And in before, LOL, you didn't know girls have butts? I was quite young, probably around 7, and I was at my friend's house. She went to the bathroom, which was opposite her bedroom, but she left the door open and I watched her pee. Then we were talking about her vagina and I thought it was funny. Then her mom called us for dinner, and I said, "Come down with your panties down." "Don't come down with your panties down," said her mom from downstairs. I got a bit of a fright. It was so short and thick that I was a bit confused because that's not what you usually see in adult movies, and it looked so angry. Saw my mom's when I was a kid. Like many kids, I was curious about how she peed. Saw more detailed ones in porno mags. I wasn't repulsed, but lots of the women were spreading them with their fingers, which I thought looked painful. I was really confused. The first time I thought, well, that's really plain looking. It just looked like a line to me. Then there was the first time I saw a girl with a lot of labia going on. I didn't know they came like that. Probably one of the most confusing instances of my life. I just could not understand what I was seeing. I figured she had an accident or was born funny. Oh God, I hope you didn't say any of that out loud. I was texting a guy that I met on some game online when I was 14. Like I honestly just wanted a friend. I was homeschooled. The first thing he texted me was a picture of his penis. And I was so shocked and horrified that I actually got dizzy and almost blacked out. Nausea and everything. I had to lay down for a few minutes to calm down. Then when I started to relax, I deleted the picture and blocked his number. I laughed. Not cruelly, but penises are funny looking, and it was flaccid because we were just gonna shower and he just whipped it out when I wasn't expecting it. Looked hilarious. Plus I was pretty nervous. 16-year-old reaction to a wild penis randomly appearing. My older sister and her friends told all of us that black guys have purple penises. Upon seeing my first one, I gave a, "Why isn't it purple? I thought it was supposed to be purple." I couldn't actually see it because it was too dark. Luckily, the girl had a clit piercing, which greatly aided me while going down on her. This is the first time I had to do with a vagina in a sexual context. I was quite satisfied by the smell and texture. 10 out of 10, have done again. My parents showered with me until I was about 6, so I've never not known what a vagina looked like. To me, the idea of not knowing what the other sex's genitals looks like is completely bizarre, a little effed up even. Humans should know what a human looks like. So, I'm a guy, but something about my dick blew my mind when I was in high school. Sometimes I get constipation, which leads to many minutes of quietly staring at my own dick on the toilet. During one of the quiet and meditative sessions, I discovered that my balls move by themselves. If you hold completely still, they will gently pulsate by themselves as if they're concocting some magical brew. Not my first time seeing, but my first time eating a girl out. I was in the dark and suddenly she was really wet, like way more wet than I expected. After a bit I realized it tasted like iron, like metallic, and I immediately knew it was blood. At first I was super grossed out thinking she was on her period, but actually my nose had started bleeding profusely. It wouldn't stop, so I had to drive myself home while holding a paper towel to my face the whole time. I used to be a huge Dragon Ball Z fan, so all I could think of was Master Roshi and how his nose would spray blood whenever he saw a piece of ass or something.